Well, hi, everybody. It's this very, very, very special edition. And we've spared no cost to bring this to you today. No, in all seriousness, as we've done these programs, myself and my good friend Richard Morchoe, he's mentioned 3 or 4 times that he spent an inordinate amount of time coming up with a plan to reorganize and restructure the Electoral College. Because we have a situation, and this election is a good example, this past one, where the person that got almost 3 million votes, 22.8 million votes more than the other candidate, the person who came in second won because of the way the Electoral College works out. And that was done originally so that states would have larger population, get more votes, et cetera, to balance it out. Having said that to you, Richard does not like that, thinks it's a terrible situation, and he's come up with the Morchoe Electoral College plan of the century.
Thank you, Dick. Well, Dick, I first mentioned this to Dick when he exclaimed, well, the winner lost because the popular vote did not lead to the election. And that's understandable because we came together to build our Constitution as states. And people in the state thought of the states as their countries at one time. And they only wanted to give up so much to the government. And they did not want to give the power of a popular vote to everybody in the country because big states would dominate little states. So we occasionally see the anomaly of the loser winning or the winner losing, somebody getting more votes not becoming president. And Dick is against that. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I'm for a completely different system because I believe democracy demonstrably does not work as we know it. Can we make democracy work? I hope so. The important thing is it's worse here now in the mass media because you see those debates on TV for president, they're not debates.
Oh, no, they're not a debate. That's a discussion. Oh, it's just a joke.
Well, they ask the dopiest questions of people. In the last election, they wouldn't let the only person who had anything to say about foreign policy, Tulsi Gabbard, come on. You can think she's a nut if you want, but at least she was talking about it. And every time, whether it was Mayor Pete or Kamala, when they got up against her, they lost because she had the goods on them, so they got her off the TV. Don't let her in the debate. I was surprised we didn't have Alex Trebek running it saying, excuse me, Senator, could you phrase that in the form of a question? It was just so embarrassing a way to run for president. It's a quiz show. It's who's glib. That's not how it should be. So how do we elect a president? No. How do we select a president instead of electing? What can people do? I'm not smart enough to pick the head of neurosurgery at Mass General. I know that. But somehow I'm smart enough to pick the guy who runs the economy, who takes us into wars, who has his finger on the nuclear button. I'm smart enough to do that. Who has 20 other jobs. I'm smart enough to do that? I don't think so. I may be smarter than some of the people, but just by myself, no. In the aggregate, say what do you have, 60 million voters? Are we all smart enough to answer that question? I don't think so. But what are we smart enough to do? Are we smart enough to say, who is the best person we know in our town, our city, government? We might be smart enough to do that. How about in our neighborhoods? Now, I live in the holy town of West Brookfield. It's one of the most pleasant places in the world. I do hate to go to the town meeting, but we get the job done. We fight it out. We're not qualified to do that, but we do it, and it's good. I hate the town meeting. It's boring. It's long. But it's effective democracy. So if we got together,
But let me just interject, just as a side to this, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I think town meetings are a thing of the past. I think that party's over, because I've used to be a town moderator, and I've watched it happen, where an agenda takes place, where they'll come in, and it happened recently in Charlton, where they wanted to get something passed, and in they come with their grandmothers and grandfathers. They all come in. Article 6 is up. They vote, get it passed, and then they get up and leave.
ain't democracy wonderful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not asking them to do it.
Town meetings really may be one of those things that's hung on a little bit too long, but that's neither here nor there.
But I'm not asking them
No.
to allow. What I'm asking them is a town meeting sized electorate is vote for the best person in their town to represent them, to select the next level of electors until we get all the state electors. So what do we have? 8? Did you say 9? 8 or 9 in Massachusetts?
We have an 8 in Massachusetts.
8 electors or 8 congresspeople?
8 electors.
8 electors in Massachusetts.
Who are bound to vote by the popular vote.
Yeah, as it is now.
Yep.
And that wasn't always the way it was. They just screwed up in making the first Electoral College, and then they continued to screw up. At one point, the electors were picked by the state senate. The last people I would trust to pick the electors is the great and general court, either house. Anyway, but we can probably hope we can pick the best person among us. And then they go to the next level, town meeting size, or a few hundred people, and they pick the best people among them, and we winnow it down. We do it by district, and we winnow it down so we have the 8 people. They come together in Washington, and as the Constitution wants us to, they don't elect the president, they select him. Nobody runs. You don't run for president. It's not an office. You are elected.
That's interesting you say that, because one of the tragedies I think in our country is we have Party A, Party D, and Party R. Party D picks a person. Party R picks a person and says, okay, all you people, pick one of those 2. So how much choice do we really have? This year, we will end up with either Biden or Trump.
6 of one, half dozen.
We're given a choice, right?
The
So
orange
think
or the
about that.
vegetable.
Think about that. We're going to have a choice. We're going to elect a president, but we're told we have this guy or that guy. Period.
Now, Dick, remember you have many times you've spoken about your father. He was in 2
Yep,
wars.
yep.
And he gets very angry at people who didn't vote, or God rest his soul, he got very angry at people. Now, we all know, if there were a line into a polling booth outside, if it went down the street, and I said to everybody, don't vote, I give you $1,000, who would turn me down? Because you're about 1/60 millionth of a vote if it were the popular vote. Who would turn me down? Please tell me who would.
I wouldn't.
There you go. And your father?
Oh, he'd be upset.
He'd be spinning.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be spinning. So this is where we are. The reality is you have no influence with your vote.
No, you really don't.
And this what you would
You
have.
pick between the 2 people that the national parties put up.
And if
Period. And we've also seen on quite a few occasions where we've had, I remember Anderson was one of them that ran,
Yeah.
Perot ran,
yeah,
where we've had a third candidate, they can't get off the ground.
no. Even if their ideas are rather good.
Yeah.
Now Anderson was an idiot.
Yeah.
Perot, he had more to say, but he was kind
All
of
he had
young.
was money.
Yeah, he had money. So they're not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
No.
So you have people from a lot of different ways of looking at it come to Washington. All right, what do you think about this guy? How about the Supreme Court justice, head of the Supreme Court? You think should we call him in and see if we can make him become president? How about this guy who wrote this book. People, bring them in. The electors talk to them, and they select them. Select one. Nobody runs, because running is so corrupt.
Oh. And the thing that always bothers me, and I was involved in campaigns, 3 or 4, 5, 6 of them, in Massachusetts, and I was on the finance committee of a couple of them where I raised money, and when you think about it, those campaigns and the amount of money that we used to spend, when you think about the amount of money, going back to the 10 candidates or 12 candidates that started out for the Democratic Party nomination, and count up all the money that they spent just to get on the stage, never mind. Now we're down to Biden and Trump. And what it's going to take between what Trump's going to spend, what Biden's going to spend, and then these guys that shoot in and give them $50 million,
Yes.
and make huge donations. And so we're going to end up spending probably half the national debt to elect a president. And we got kids in this country who haven't eaten today. We got people who haven't got a place to sleep. We got veterans on the sidewalk, sleeping under bridges. And we can spend $500 million to elect a president.
And may I interject that my plan, we would not have corporate, we would not have money in the system. The money would go.
No contributions.
No contributions. You're doing it from the ground up.
Yeah.
So we've solved. When
I ran for president, one of my slogans was, when I did my stump speech, was, I don't really need the money. What I need is votes.
There you go.
Okay? And I say to people, I don't need the money. I just need votes. And it's true.
When my system comes to fruition, and I'm down in one of the electors down in Washington, I'm gonna bring Dick in to explain not why he should be president, but why he shouldn't be president. And I think he'll have a hard time.
Let me say this to you, though. Take that concept. What's to prevent one of those people that you pick, who's a human being, and somebody comes along and says, hey, like the guy in line, you give him $1,000, will he vote? I'll give you $20,000 if you'll vote for Joe Smith, all right? And you go to enough people, because those same people who are willing to give Biden or Trump huge donations, and believe me, I could write a book about raising money for campaigns. I mean, I remember the funny part was, we would get, I think Massachusetts was $2,000. That's the most you could give a candidate, individual. And then what we would have is, we'd have these wealthy people who they'd give $2,000, the wife would give $2,000, and 3 of the kids would give $2,000. Well, that guy gave us $10,000. No matter how you look at it. Yeah. Even though there were individuals, it was a $10,000 donation from, Irving Smith, period.
First of all, that $10,000, you bundle that correctly, it's legal. What the person who would be doing would be something illegal and thus prosecutable.
Yeah.
And that's,
well, no, not as long as you got to prove they didn't come for his wife.
You have to prove every crime.
Yeah, but my point I'm making
shoes are looking pretty nice there. Where did you get that on the?
Well, here's the deal. And what used to be hysterical, we'd get a nice contribution. Let's say we got $2,000 from Richard Morchoe, who donated to the X committee. I'd be all like, "Whoa, great! We got a $2,000 check. Well, wonderful." And then, of course, we used to watch our opponents' donations. Guess who gave him $2,000? Morchoe.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what happened when I started to see this? I sat down with the committee and I said, "Look, we're stupid." What do you mean? I says, do you know how many people out there will send us $10 and put a sign on the front lawn and actually vote for us? You think that guy that gave us $2,000 and he gave King $2,000 is going to vote for us? He probably won't even vote.
Right. Yeah.
He's going to be too busy that night having dinner.
Sure.
He got, he got something. He go on the opera. He ain't going to bother, And they look at me. Well, we started. So I finally got my way, and we sent out a little to every Democrat we could find. We asked them for $10. They laughed at me. You'd fall over if you saw the amount of dough that we got.
Yeah.
Because little Charlie down the street, he'll give you $10, and he'll put a sign on his front lawn, and he and his wife will give you a vote. And they couldn't believe it. The money kept rolling in, $10. We had 1,000, and they said, "Oh my God, why haven't we done this before?" Because you were too worried about getting the money from Irving Smith for $20,000
Right.
or $10,000. You were too. All you cared about was that. And when I pointed out to you that he gave the same amount of money to your opponent, he almost fell over. You couldn't believe it. What? He plays both sides. He's got access to both governors, whoever wins.
And I agree with you. The only defense I can say about an electoral system is, first of all, how many electors are 400 and something?
Yeah.
That's a lot easier to police than 60 million. And second,
Well, would you still have one from each state, or would you have
the
multiples?
electors, the same elector, the number of electors.
Oh, same one would have. So Mass would have 8.
Yeah.
Michigan would
And
have
they
16.
meet together in Washington, D.C., and like the Vatican. I know you evangelicals out there, don't worry about the Vatican. I'm just giving you an example how they do it. They put them all together, and they work at it until they come up with one. And if they don't come after a while, they cut down the food. Believe me, that concentrates the mind.
Well, not only that.
Especially if you were in Italy where there's good food.
I'm trying to think about it, but I think the election for Francis was 6 votes or 5 votes before they finally got it.
Yeah.
Because you have to win, I guess you have to win 2/3
Yeah.
at first.
Yeah.
And there was the first ballot, there was 5 names.
Yeah.
Then the lowest one gone. And then they had the next ballot, there was 4, and they cut it down to 3, then they got it down to 2, but they had to vote twice because one of them didn't get enough, and then finally Francis got enough votes and
Right.
he became Pope. But
And you think that's a great system because you love Francis.
I think he's a great Pope. I think he's terrific. I think he's a Jesuit. They're liberal.
Oh, gosh.
They're liberal. But anyway.
Well, they couldn't get a Catholic, so they got a Jesuit.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, I had a great friend who was a priest who was a Jesuit, taught at BC, got burned out, went to the cardinal and asked him if he could be a secular priest. He said, sure. He ended up at Sacred Heart, Malden, where I was a kid growing up. It was Joe McIsaac. And Father McIsaac was, because he was very, very intellectual. He taught at BC for years.
That was Jesuit thing.
He was a sharp cookie, but he was a fun guy, and he just said he got so sick and tired of getting up every day, going to teaching kids, same stuff over and over again. He just needed something different, And the Jesuits couldn't believe he was going to leave and go become a secular priest. But we digress. But I mean, the question is, and there's no question, that the system we have is suspect.
That is a very kind way of putting it. If we need an ambassador to somewhere,
no.
we got to have Dick there. That was good.
Let me tell you what my father used to say to me when I was growing up. He says, I hope with all your political connections, you never end up the ambassador to the court of St. James, because you'll have us at war with the Queen, because you won't put up with it. I said, Dad, that's not one of my goals.
Well, now I think you've mellowed to the point where you use the word suspect.
Yeah.
And you didn't use 6 or 7 expletives with it.
It's a good word.
Yeah, that was good. I was proud of you.
And so look, if there's anybody sitting out there who doesn't think we need a change, and I know the minute I use the word change, I scare people. I know that. I got it. But boy, do we have to change. What we're doing now ain't working.
No, it isn't.
You know, and that goes back, and I remember writing to when Steiner was his name, Tom Steyer.
Oh my gosh.
When he was running, and he had a big, he was all for term limits, and I sent him $1 because he asked me for $1, and I said no one's ever asked me for $1, so I put $1 in an envelope and I mailed it to him. But I wrote a note, and I told him, "You're barking up the wrong tree." I says, because while that's a great idea, and while I agree, boy, do we need it, the problem is, tell me which one of the 100 senators, and I said one specifically, and which one of the 435 members of the House do you have that will vote to get themselves out of office? Tell me who you have that you think will vote for term limits so that they can go out of office. And I never got an answer, of course, other than a thank you for my $1.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's not, I mean, even you might possibly get a few who are figuring this is my last year, I hate these guys. You might get a few of those. There's somebody who says, I'm not running next year. But
you do. Every term, we get 2 or 3 who they're either tired or old or whatever.
But the young guy who comes in and thinks, well, there's a mid-range. There's this guy who comes in and thinks, I'm going to be president. And he might. But the mid-range of people who are there in their second term to just before their last term, ain't no way they're giving up nothing.
Nope. Yeah. Nope. It's a it's a position that just it becomes theirs.
Yeah.
It becomes theirs, and I think that's one of the tragedies. I was coordinator in Central Mass for Ted Kennedy in 1962 when he beat Eddie McCormick and became the senator for the seat that his brother held. And I worked with Ted Kennedy for many years. He was there 47 years. He got there, he won, and then never lost. And it became his seat. I remember some of these guys. There were so many of them. I can't think of their names. They were all in their 80s. Some of these senators, and they were voting that you and I have to retire when we're 65, but they, at 86, can stay in office for as long as they're alive.
It boggles the mind. It
does.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. And so there's no question what we're doing is wrong. It's not working. And the problem is the chances of trying to make it work are difficult because the people who have to vote to change it will not vote to get themselves out of office. So they're not going to do anything. I mean, what people don't realize, and I've said this to you, you and I have chatted about this many times. I'll never forget. I was on John Kerry's campaign when he ran for senator. We had a gang of us, flew down with him to Washington. We had a chartered plane. We all went down for his swearing in. The senior George Bush swore him in. He was the vice president at the time. And we had a get-together down at the Dubliner, which is just off the hill, that night for all of us from Massachusetts. And I've shared this story with you. And about 9:30, 10 o'clock, door slams open and in comes, like it was noontime, bright as day, Ted Kennedy with a friend. Brings him over, comes around the room to the different tables. I want you to meet my friend Dick Vaughan. Dick, this is Senator Orrin Hatch, my best friend. That afternoon, they each called each other donkeys on the floor of the Senate. Okay, there they are, the two of them. And he's bringing them in to meet all of us from Massachusetts. all his buddies, and which was great. And I remember telling some people when I got home, you know who Ted Kennedy's best friend is? Orrin Hatch. What? You're crazy. I said, it's the way it is. And Orrin Hatch sat there at the table I was at with those three or four of us and shared with us, when I need something and I need 8 votes, I go to Kennedy, say, Ted, I need 8 votes. Can you get me 8? I got to get this bill through. It's going to give me a new highway, 6 new fire trucks, 38 libraries. I got to get this through. Sure. And he says, and when Ted needs 5 or 6 votes, he's got all the Democrats, but he needs a few more. Orrin, I need 6 votes. I need 7 votes. Whatever I need, can you get them for me? Sure. Because I'll get 7 guys from a state that could care less, that it won't hurt them, and they'll give Kennedy the vote to get what he wants.
That speaks the system.
Yeah.
There was I think he was from Wyoming. I forget his name. He said, we have the stupid party and the evil party. The evil party is the Democratic Party. The stupid party is the Republican Party. And I am proud to say I'm a member of the stupid party. Now, sometimes the stupid party and the evil party get together and they do something that is both stupid and evil. We call that bipartisanship.
Yeah.
So, this is, what you told me doesn't, we know that, you're right.
But I mean, I know for a fact that I've sat with senators, and they'll tell you getting half a loaf of bread is better than not having any bread at all. And they sit down and they compromise. If people really think that McConnell and Schumer hate each other, they're kidding themselves. They work together every single day. Okay? And they call each other.
They did hate each other, they work together.
They call each other all kinds of names, but when it comes down to it, they've got to coexist.
You know what, though?
Although I will be honest, in the last, 8, 10, 12 years, I have seen a major change in the House and the Senate in that we really have now come down to stupid and evil. I mean, they really, the old guys that used to work things out are gone. I mean, the stories about Reagan and Tip O'Neill are priceless. The president would call him up, and at 10 o'clock at night, he'd quietly sneak into the White House.
Yeah, I remember that.
Tip would, and they'd sit down and they'd work out a deal. And Tip would go the next day and get it voted. And that's what they did.
But you see, it's coming to the end game because, first of all, there is far more rancor.
Oh.
And second of all, they don't realize it. The cupboard is bare.
Can I tell you something? You know who's ruined our government? Television.
Oh, certainly.
Television ruined our government.
Certainly. Everything is instantaneous.
Television has ruined our government.
Yeah.
When we had radio, things used to be fine. Now we got television. And I don't mean, I remember when we had 3 stations. We had 4, 5, and 7.
I'm that old too.
Yeah, 4, 5, and 7. And that wasn't bad. No. But now we have 600.
Oh, yeah.
We have all these cable news stations, and they're all cutthroating each other and beating. And television has ruined our government.
I tend to think we're coming to the reductio ad absurdum at this point now. It's just all reduced to the absurd. And this makes the whole something actually happening, imperative. We're going to lose this.
Oh, yeah.
If this keeps going.
Oh, yeah, we are. We're in trouble. We've got to make some changes. Well, folks, there you are. That was a special edition with my good friend Richard Morchoe and his idea about the Electoral College, which makes sense. And that's the problem with it.
Exactly.
That's another Conversations with. Thanks for watching.